One got knocked down, he won't get up again. The other went knocked him down. One got knocked down, and now he's fucking dead. The other went knocked him out. Combo breaker!
Oh hell yeah, fighting, the manliest, most badass thing of all time. I mean, think about it, who doesn't want to watch two people beat the ever-loving shit out of each other? Well, it's badass and cool, at least until these two step into the ring. That's right, today we might have the most pathetic match in history. It's a battle between Dan Hibiki and Glass Joe. Glass Joe is the first and easiest opponent that Mac faces on his way to be the boxing champion. Now, Glass Joe, surprisingly, actually has a 1-99 win-loss record. That means somehow he won a fight in his career. So, on to Glass Joe's special moves. Well, the only one he really has is Vive la France, where Joe, it's his only special attack. Basically, he steps back, he taunts his foes by saying Vive la France, and then he steps forward and goes in for a huge uppercut. Now, if he fails this and someone hits him during the uppercut, he's actually knocked out. Like, it's a one-shot KO. So, Glass Joe's actually surprisingly got some pretty decent feats. So, Glass Joe is strong enough to hurt Little Mac slightly, so this allows him to scale kind of a little bit to Little Mac. However, since he's the weakest opponent, he can't scale to like wall level or anything crazy like that. Joe's also incredibly quick, as he can dodge and block attacks from Little Mac. You know, the guy who can fight at the speed of a freaking bullet train. Yeah, so speed-wise, he can scale pretty well. He's also quite durable, so he can survive blows from Sandman and Little Mac. And, you know, he's an average boxer, so he's got his basic training and boxing and everything, but he's got nothing special up his sleeves. He's just your average Joe. Now, Joe's literally the most imperfect character I've covered on this show. His jaw is super frail, and it's so fragile that one good hit can knock it, it can just destroy it. That's why he wears this headgear. Unfortunately, if a strong enough hit to the bottom of the headgear sends it flying up, leaving his face open for multiple attacks while he's stunned. And if someone does hit him during his Vive la France attack, it just instantly knocks him out. Also, his name's freaking Glass Joe. How much of a wuss do you have to be to earn the name Glass Joe? Oh, Dan Hibiki. Why do you have to be a thing? Well, Dan Hibiki's out for revenge against Sagat, who killed his father, but being Dan, he failed. Well, here's the thing. Dan is like bootleg Ryu. All of his attacks are just like shitty versions of him, but I'll cover that more in a second. So one fateful day, he actually met up with Sagat and beat the ever-loving shit out of him, like Sagat was knocked out. Or maybe not. See, Sagat actually threw the match, but it kind of gave Dan closure, but also kind of boosted his confidence beyond belief, and to the point where he actually started his own dojo and created his own martial arts. Problem is, his martial arts is like the bootleg version of Ryu and Ken's. His Hadoken is shitty, his spin kick's shitty, his uppercut's shitty, but we'll cover that in the special moves. So, Dan, like most Street Fighters, can actually manipulate his ki, and he uses this to use his horribly butchered bootleg versions of the other famous Street Fighter moves. So, he basically has the Gadoken, which is like a Ryu's Hadoken, but smaller, weaker, and travels less than 12 inches. Yeah, his freaking projectile can't even travel a full foot. The Koryuken is a Shoryuken like Ryu or Ken, but it doesn't go nearly as high and does a lot less damage. The I don't even want to try and pronounce that. The Denkakeyaku is like Ryu and Ken's Tatsumaki Senpuken, where he kicks repeatedly in the air, propelling himself forward. The Psycho Defense allows Dan to push forward while blocking, doing minor damage to whoever hit him. The Shinkyo Gadoken is the Gadoken, but it travels even less distance, but does more damage. Dan also has his Ultra Taunt, where he does several punches, kicks, barrel rolls, jumps, and at the end he ends with probably the stupidest taunt I've ever seen. But Dan has one amazing attack up his sleeve, the only one that's useful. And actually, he's only used it once, and he failed. He tripped before he could use the attack on anybody. That's right. He can use Akuma's most iconic and powerful move, the Raging Demon. However, this requires him to get really angry and desperate. So on to feats. Dan is strong enough to break punching bags in a single punch, and he can lift and throw full-grown men. He's also quick enough to fight Blanka during their training, and he's able to fight other Street Fighters and survive. Not only that, but he's survived a kick from Ken, and he's fought against Sagat. Although it was a pity match, he still fought and survived it. Dan is also rather smart, as he's skilled in martial arts and even made and teaches his own martial arts to other people. It may be a shitty martial arts, but it takes some kind of intelligence to make your own. And Dan is incredibly clumsy. Honestly, he is truly the clumsiest Street Fighter I've ever seen. He trips and does a bunch of stupid shit. Also, his martial arts lacks defensive maneuvers other than the Psycho defense. But compared to other Street Fighters, his defense is absolute trash. So let's see what absolutely awful fighter can come out on top in a fight to the death. Alright folks, tonight we've got probably the greatest match you'll ever see in your life. That's right, we have a match between Dan Hibiki and Glass Joe. Dan walks into the arena as the match is being announced. Glass Joe then stumbles into the ring and looks scared. The match starts and Dan runs over and punches at Glass Joe, who blocks. He then goes in for a kick, but Glass Joe blocks and attacks with a sucker punch and then uppercuts him. Dan falls to the ground and starts to cry as he gets up. Dan then runs over and grabs Joe and throws him to the ground and throws a Go Hadoken down at Joe. Joe gets up, burned from the attack, and goes for a straight punch, but Dan dodges and spin kicks Joe right in the gut. He then follows up with a rising uppercut, launching Glass Joe into the air. Dan taunts at Joe as he stands up and starts to taunt Dan. Dan then looks agitated and runs over and is met with a powerful uppercut that breaks his nose. Dan falls as he starts to get up, is crying and tears and boogers are just everywhere. Joe then runs over for a finishing blow, but right as he does, Dan stands up and starts screaming. And then he rushes forward with a flash of purple energy. Glass Joe falls to the ground with a bloody, beaten, lifeless body. Holy shit, did Dan just win a match? I cannot say I didn't expect this, but our winner is fairly obvious. It's Dan. He pretty much has the strength edge with wall level strength, whereas Glass Joe, if you want to be nice and upscale him to peak human, you can. But either way, it's not enough to compete with Dan's strength. But durability, they both clock in at about wall level thanks to Sandman and the not giving a shit version of Sagat. Now, speed, actually, Dan takes a pretty big thing in, as he has supersonic speeds compared to Joe's subsonic speeds. But really, what seals Glass Joe's fate is, well, Dan is a martial artist, and he has special attacks and projectiles, and even the soul-destroying Raging Demon, whereas Glass Joe is your run-of-the-mill boxer. With some punches, he's really gonna have a hard time fighting Dan. Now, I will give you Dan's clumsy and stupid, and his attacks are kinda shitty, but Glass Joe isn't gonna understand or know what to do against any of them because they're new ideas to him. He's a boxer and gets his ass beat by Little Mac, who deals with the difficult people. Glass Joe is he's too fragile to win. Our winner is Dan Hibiki. Next time on Combo Breaker. The Half Genie Hero versus Shovel Knight, the Slayer of the Order of No Quarter. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and put in the comments what you think of the next match, who you think will win, why, anything you got. I'd love to see what you guys put.